So here we go. Big questions going into the season about all 7 Canadian teams. And here are Craig Button, TSN Director of Scouting, and Mike Johnson, TSN Hockey Analyst, to talk about all of it. First of all, gentlemen, great to have you in studio.
In studio, too.
Together.
Oh, great, isn't it?
Although I still haven't been on the desk doing highlights, and one of these days I'll get there.
You know what? Later in the show, would you guys mind joining me for the top 10? And then we can do highlights together.
Perfect.
Okay.
Oh,
there
yeah.
we go. That's how we have it. I just came up with that right now.
Okay. Am I committing to stay here until the top 10 is
That's
formulated?
correct. That's correct.
We might have to revisit this, yes.
That's the day.
Can we join you in the morning when you do the morning loop?
Careful what you wish for. Let's start with Toronto Maple Leafs because we just saw John Tavares, so it looks like he'll be in the lineup. We know they are loaded. I mean, they've got 4 great lines. The question seems to be on the back end again with this team. More injuries in the preseason. How concerned are you guys with this team's defense going into the season?
Yeah, I'm not concerned about their team going into the season. I think you start to look at their team as it's constructed, how it'll look at leading into the deadline and what they're going to do to try to give themselves a better blue line to have success come playoff time.
In some ways, I think the strength of their defense is their depth. Like, they may not have the superstar Victor Hedman kind of guy. Morgan Riley puts up a lot of points, but maybe defensively not quite as good. But the fact that they have 3 pairs, even without Liljegren there, that have all played last year, put up good numbers, 7th in the league in expected goals against. It's not like they were a bad defensive team. So I don't know. I think some of the worrying about the defense might be a little bit overrated for the regular season. Of course, Leaf fans are primarily concerned with what happens when they get to the postseason.
And to Mike's point, I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs get enough credit for being a really good defensive team. They're a good defensive team. What happens in the playoffs, though, when you get against really good teams, we can look at where they've struggled a little bit. One of their biggest problems has been they haven't been able to hit that timely scoring in those important games. And we all tend to focus in on the blue line, but finding a way to score in those moments is just as critically important.
In Edmonton, in oil country, lots of optimism about Dylan Holloway. Had an incredible camp. He makes the team. He's going to be top 6. If he's going to be top 6, where's Jesse Puljujarvi going to play? How's that going to affect his future with the team? Already, we know that Ken Holland was probably trying to deal him in the offseason. I say probably, but
I think he was trying to move his money.
Right.
Jesse Puljujarvi's a big body. And I think everybody has to get past the fact that he was the 4th overall pick. The expectations in 2016, they're completely different today. He's a third-line forward. That's what he is. Can he scale up the lineup? Yeah. Can he give you some size and some muscle and some weight and bulk along? Yeah. But let's stop expecting him to be a 25-goal scorer, and he's not going to be. I like Jesse Puljujarvi. I like what he gives that team. So I don't have a problem with Jesse Puljujarvi playing on my third line.
I think it just offers flexibility to Edmonton, really. If there's an injury or Holloway or Yamamoto, maybe they're going through a dry patch, you can bump them up for in the short term. The lines that play with him do put up good results. Even though, yes, he doesn't score a lot of points himself, the lines seem to score a lot. He's just not involved, or maybe he's not involved in the plays that result in points. But I think it gives him flexibility. But also, if Holloway plays well, then the impetus to trade him becomes, if you want to clear out money, you don't really have to. You have one more body that you don't need to worry about Puljujarvi filling. So maybe it makes a trade easier, and you can lower your demands a little bit if you want to just free up the money.
I think Ken Holland has done a really nice job to what Mike's talking about, building out your depth.
Yeah.
You have Holloway, you have Kane. Ryan McLeod's been a good player. They signed Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
They were thin in that forward group for too many years.
Yeah.
They don't have that problem anymore.
Doesn't it come down to he's got to outplay Fogle maybe?
Yeah.
Like the most consistent ice time and be a regular in the lineup, which he can do. He's a good player. He's just maybe not a dynamic offensive player.
And Fogle didn't have a great year last year, but he said he wants more time on the penalty kill. He wants to be involved more. So it'll be an interesting battle among.
Play well.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a battle among that forward group. And then going south to Calgary, where you're from, Craig, and you've heard all about it. The massive changes in the offseason. They just signed Weegar to that massive contract extension. Any concern? First of all, any thoughts on that contract extension? That's sort of the third of the big 3 that they got done.
No, not at all. And, you look at Brad Treliving's body of work. I mean, he traded Dougie Hamilton and ended up with Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin.
Right.
He's dealt a scenario this past summer where it doesn't look very good, right? He makes a trade for Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, ends up signing Kadri. He's done fantastic work.
Amazing.
And that's already a good blue line. It's already a real top-notch defensive team. Weegar just makes it better.
What's a top 2, top 3 defenseman on a team worth? $6 million.
Yep.
Right.
And the fact that Mackenzie Weegar is going to step into Calgary, who was a top 3 team defensively in the league last year, he's their best defenseman.
Yeah.
People don't realize how good he is. And he's good at the stuff that modern age players like. Like he stops rushes and he starts rushes. He holds the blue, like he controls the blue lines offensively and defensively. Exactly what, as a forward, I want to play with that guy because he gets me the puck in good spots. And he put up quite a few points. He can really shoot it. Term is an issue, but term's an issue for Huberdeau. Term's an issue for Kadri.
They're all in, right?
Listen, we'll worry about that 4 years down the road. They got 3 years before any of these guys kind of really maybe bump into where they're going to slow down a little bit, and they're going for it. I got no problem with that at all.
All these contracts that these players sign, we always can look at term for the vast majority of them. But if you want to get the player, you got to have to give them term.
In 8 years, the cap might be $100 million.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
might not look so bad down the road. Pierre Dorion obviously had a great offseason, incredible. And, man, Claude Giroux and Alex DeBrincat seem to have some real chemistry. DeBrincat's passing more than he's shooting in the preseason. But there's lots of talk about Dorion being in on Jake Chychrun. First of all, do you like that fit for Ottawa? And do you feel that they, even with Sanderson coming in, do you feel that they need a little more help on the blue line?
Listen, I think Jake Sanderson is a fantastic prospect. He's a young, green defenseman. Hard position to learn and grow into the NHL.
Of course.
So, to me, when I look at the Ottawa Senators blue line, you can add a Jacob Chychrun, who's young. He's 24 years of age on a really good contract.
Good deal. Yes, affordable.
It works.
Yeah.
Like it makes your team better. They have a great prospect pool. They do. And so, at some point in time, you want to improve your blue line, you're going to have to trade some of these young prospects that they have in the forward group. I think that that's obviously somewhere that they can look. Jacob Chychrun, to me, would be a great.
The only downside, of course, is the injuries sometimes.
Injuries,
right?
and he's not a right shot.
Right.
Ideally, with Shabbat, long-term left shot. Sanderson should be around long-term left shot. You'd like a right shot. Now, guys can go play the offside. We've seen that before.
Sure.
But that would be the perfect fit if he was a right shot. He's not quite that. But it's amazing that the hesitancy of teams to give up a prospect who might become a really good player to get a guy who we already kind of know is a pretty good player. It's amazing. Like we can't give up Pinto, and we like Shane Pinto. We don't want to give him up, but like he might turn into a really good player. But so Jacob Chychrun's already established that he is that. And when you have that many prospects around, you're kind of pushing for a better team right now. You're not really years away. It's kind of you got to go now while you have Giroux and everybody else. DeBrincat. It makes a lot of sense that they would be interested in that. It's a heavy price, but they have the assets to pay it if they want to.
They do, and I go back to 1995, Jay. It's a long time. We were all a lot younger back then.
Man.
Some of us had aged better than others.
Yeah.
Sophomore year. It's a good year.
That was a fun time for me, too.
But you know what? Mike talks about quality. Okay, and Bob Gainey looked at our team, and you had Sakic and Forsberg coming to the West. You had Fedorov and we had Medano. He was a great player.
Yeah.
Well, Joe Nieuwendyk became available.
Sure.
And the price was high.
Yeah.
It was Jerome McGinley.
Yep.
But we looked at our team and said, this is going to make our team better. Right. We knew we were giving up a really good player.
Yep.
So you want to sit down and you want to talk about what makes your team better. You have to consider paying the price. Because if you're not ready to pay the price, you're not going to get the player.
And understand your competitive horizon. When are you trying to be good? And I think for Ottawa, it's kind of in the next 2, 3, 4 years. They're trying to be good.
Yeah. No, they've added these pieces. Montreal, kind of a different situation. They're obviously rebuilding, but they've decided to keep Slavkovsky. They've decided to keep Caden Gooley with the big club. Jack Eyes with the big club. They're loaning him to Laval briefly, but they say he's going to be back, and he looked really impressive in the preseason. Could be the next big tough guy in the league. Do you like the fact that Martin St. Louis decided to keep these players up at the big club?
Well, I don't know what choice he had because, there's not a lot of experienced blue liners there.
Right.
Caden Gooley is ready to play in the NHL,
Amazing
in my view, but he's green, right?
Yeah.
But this is a team that is looking 24, 30 months down the road when they can look at like in Ottawa and say, what can we do? We got all these young players. How much better? Slavkovsky's 18. Gooley's 20. It's going to take time. But I think their plan is very well established, and they're going to carry it out.
Of all those guys, those young guys they're keeping, I think Gooley's the most likely to kind of establish who I am at the NHL level, and I can kind of play like that now.
Right.
He'll get better at that, but okay, you're probably not going to go anywhere else. But everyone else, including Slavkovsky, it would not surprise me one bit. Jordan Harris, Jack Eye, they're going to be Laval, bus route all the time. Called up, put down, called up, put down. Give everyone a different look, different breaks, depending on what's going on in the season, how everyone's playing. It's great that they made it. They should be trying to introduce more young players, especially in the back end. But I don't think it's a permanent roster spot. I imagine there'll be some transaction along the way.
Yeah, and for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton and Martin St. Louis, I mean, this is a year that's about, trying to keep the spirit of the team up.
Sure.
Right?
Craig, this year, for Montreal is about getting the forwards to play well enough so we can trade you.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Respectfully, because they have a whole bunch of guys on expiring contracts, whether it's Drouin or Monahan or Dadonov.
Yep.
And they have a whole bunch of guys who have long-term contracts that maybe they could unload, whether it's a Gallagher or a Josh Anderson or whatever it might be. All good NHL players.
Yep.
But ideally, Marty gets them playing well enough
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they have value around the league. The expiring guys, I think that will happen. But maybe a couple of those guys that have existing contracts and then can kind of turn over the forwards like they've turned over the defense.
I love it. Let's go to Vancouver. One thing Craig said to me over and over last year on the show is how thin Vancouver was on defense. So in the offseason, they went and got some forwards. They got Kuzmenko. They got Mikheyev.
Yes.
Are we still worried about the defense?
More
For
than
Bruce
ever.
Boudreau?
Yeah. Well, they were trying to add some speed up front, so
Sure.
I understand why they got Kuzmenko, free player. But the blue line after Quinn Hughes, I mean, it is a real challenging group to put out there and expect to carry against really demanding opponents and good teams to be able to give your team what it needs defensively to be successful.
They have Thatcher Demko.
Well, they're
And
lucky
that's
they do.
what they can cling to because we got a
Absolutely.
goalie that can steal games and
Yep.
we give up a lot of shots and chances. I'm curious, though, does Bruce Boudreau look at that defensive group and say, we need to kind of run and gun it? Because Travis Green saw that defensive group, said, we need to play better defense. Let's button everything down, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right personality style fit for the guys in the team. Does Bruce Boudreau say, okay, you know what? We got to run it.
Yeah.
We got to trust Thatcher back there, and we got to let our guys go. They might be exciting. There'll be lots of goals in their games, but that defense it's a challenge. I mean, Quinn Hughes can only do so much, can only play so much. The other guys are probably slotted just a little too high.
Hey, listen, if I'm Bruce Boudreau, we got to win 7-5. Let's go. And Thatcher Demko, too, with a long-term contract.
Yeah.
You know what? You just say, hey, you're our guy. We know how good he is. Don't worry about the save percentage.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
the way we got to play.
Yeah, think of Grant Fuhr in the 80s and
Just make
motivate
the-
yourself that way.
Don't let the 6-1 in. We'll get
That's
the
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Jets, obviously, it's an offseason where we thought more might happen. They kind of go back in with a very similar group that they had last year. Cole Perfetti, really good in the preseason. Do you like him to break out this year with that team?
Yeah, well, I mean, I never worry about the Winnipeg Jets offense. I don't worry about their goaltending. I think their blue line's good enough. It's the manner in which they've played the last number of years. And you know what? The players can talk about being embarrassed and they don't like the way it is. They have a new coach there who's going to come in there, and the message is going to be very clear. If you want to have success and we want to have success, this is what you're going to do. Mike, you talked about it earlier. We'll watch and see.
Yeah.
Like, how committed are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is not a message that they're just learning.
Right.
Other coaches have said we need to play better defensively. We
Right.
got to care more about keeping pucks out than putting pucks in the other team's net. And that hasn't always been received and applied on the ice by their top players. And so we'll see. I mean, Rick Bowness will hold them accountable to their face, in the media, captains, whatever. Like, he will make hard decisions. Bones coached me in Arizona. Like, I know he will. But we'll see. If their roster, like, the whole is less than the sum of its parts.
Yep.
And it's Bones going to try to figure out how to get that to be more than.
I think they have the capability.
Yeah.
I do. Like, now understand, I think they have
the
the
talent,
capability,
right.
the talent.
We'll see if they put it together.